Hey, we're back. It's me, Jeff.
And it's me, Claude. How's everybody?
Good to see you all. The movie we're reviewing today is a Netflix original, straight to Netflix in this era of COVID, no theaters, power packed lineup, and the title is Project Power. So it's starring Jamie Foxx, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and a really remarkable and surprising performance by Dominique Fishback.
Yes.
I really enjoyed her as Robin. Interestingly enough, Jeff, since Joseph Gordon-Levitt played Robin, sort of, in The Dark Knight Rises, and now he has his own sidekick, whose character's name is Robin. That's kind of clever. And we get this another take on superpowered superhero type movie in Project Power. What'd you think about it, Claude?
All right. When I saw it, there were a couple of things. Overall, I enjoyed it, and it actually it's sort of just when I heard the concept, that was really cool because it actually reminded me of a conversation that a friend of mine had in high school, and he came up with this short story idea about being able to put people being able to get superhero powers, via a pill. Of course, he had a different take in that you could sort of like buy the pill according to the superpower that you wanted. So in a way, I sort of saw this as, another version of how we always have cool ideas when we're younger. It's like somebody eavesdropped and did something with the idea. So I was immediately sort of on board, and I thought the movie was very entertaining, and just like you, I was definitely impressed with Dominique Fishback because she definitely was, to me, just a joy to watch. I mean, it was like, from the moment I saw her, I was like, okay, yeah, she is really fascinating, and just in my, I think that she was holding her own with some major talents.
Yes.
So
Yes.
so I was taken in by the same as you were in terms of her as
That's a good point. She dropped in with this power pack cast. The trailer and the poster, of course, lead with Jamie Foxx. So when we see, it opened with Dominica Fishback and Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and then Jamie Foxx doesn't really show up till like third on the screen as far as a character introduction. I was like, oh, wait a minute, I didn't know Joseph Gordon-Levitt was in this. And then as the story progresses, it's like, well, how are you going to have two big stars? And then how are you going to have two stars and then plus a new shining star, rising star in this storyline? How are the characters going to, what pecking order are the characters going to fall into? Are one of these folks going to be the villain? We've never, your usual story doesn't keep good, strong characters like that very long in the story narrative, right?
Okay.
So I'm like, oh, okay, this is going to be interesting. How is this going to play out? With these, really endearing character and two really strong actors, how is this gonna play out? The trailer lets you know again that it's called Project Power, and that it is about, as you mentioned, a new designer drug that gives you temporary superpowers, but you don't know which ones they are. Somehow it's manifest in you, or the drug behaves differently based off of what maybe inherently you have within yourself. So it's not even because it's a random pill and you don't know what's in the pill. The story as it unwinds is that the makers of the pill don't actually know themselves exactly how it's going to have an impact on you. But one of the things they have found out is that it has been giving people superpowers if only temporarily. And so we open with a young woman in modern New Orleans. I kind of like, as much as I love any Chi-Town film of any kind, I have a little softness in my heart for stories that are done in New Orleans, because I still ain't over Hurricane Katrina. I'm still not over that, and I'm still not over how America treated the fifth largest city in America after Hurricane Katrina. So I'm a little soft on stories that are done in New Orleans, and this one was done in New Orleans. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is a New Orleans PD detective, I guess. He's a detective. Maybe he's narcotics, but he's a detective. He's not just a beat cop. And he already has a relationship, as we'll come to find. He already has a relationship with Robin. So Robin from Batman Rises has a relationship with Robin, who is just a young woman trying to make it in the world and doing a little small time drug pushing of this experimental drug. She got caught up into it, or she got into pushing this one drug. That's not implied that she's always been a drug dealer. She's a girl trying to take care of her grandmother or her mother. I think it's her mom. She lived with her mom.
I think it's her mom
Take
too, yeah.
care of her sickly mom. She's trying to hang in there in school, but she's not necessarily a good student. She'd rather be a rapper, and she has a passion around that. And I think all aspects of that, Claude, are just I don't know. Is adorable a good choice? No one wants to be called adorable these days, and maybe people don't like being called adorable, maybe, and they don't like a dude to use the word adorable. But she's kind of adorable. You're certainly sympathetic to her, as she's a sympathetic character who has some nobility to her, even as she's pushing this designer thrill seeker drug. She's not pushing it, but she's peddling this thrill seeker drug. So that's an exciting component of the story, and we're trying to figure out who Jamie Foxx is in this thing, who is a person who's also trying to chase down and figure out and find the source of who is the source and supplier of these drugs. And it's not clear why. What are his motivations for this? Is he just trying to angle in on the business for himself so that he can take over the market, because he is ruthlessly trying to pursue the source of these drugs? And again, the performances by these three different characters, this detective, a flawed police detective, trying to do the right thing, but maybe not doing it in the right way. This young woman trying to do the right thing, for herself. She's in high school, so trying to do the right thing for herself and her family, but maybe cutting a corner or two by selling this designer drug. And then a person who's maybe even more seemingly, we're not sure, flawed about Jamie Foxx, who's really harshly trying to track down who's the source of these drugs, and he's kind of ruthlessly going after them. Who are all these three characters? And you're kind of trying to fish for, first you're trying to fish for who's the hero in this story. I feel for a couple of people, but and that part I thought was good, actually. It gave a twist to what was a story that had some elements that we've seen before. It's going to be a movie with superpowers in it. Today, even as much as I love, superhero stories and comic book stories and whatever, even I can say that there's a whole lot of superhero stories out there today. A lot. I mean, we're getting superhero saturation. It's not all superheroes' fault, because we got a gazillion zombie stories. Disney had a musical romance zombie story about zombies in high school and how zombies can have love too. So we got far too many zombies, walking, running, singing, dancing zombies in love. We've got far too many vampires in love with werewolf stories. And, I love superhero stories. They're not the end of me liking superhero stories, but there's a lot. And so here's one that is giving you a little bit more drama, a little bit more of a twist to a normal layout of characters in an environment where we're getting a lot of superhero stories about how did everybody get their powers and what they're going to do with their powers. So I thought it did a nice job of, again, telling us, giving us compelling characters and, some exciting action in a genre that has fully established itself as, the superhero story. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I am in completely agreement with what you said. And again, just the setting of New Orleans, as you said, has an emotional weight behind it. And there's also a couple of moments when they sort of, they sort of acknowledge, that whole idea of, things going wrong when men in suits try to solve problems over there, or was the last time that happened. So I appreciate it. I definitely, I thought it was, yeah, that it was a wonderful setting for more reasons than one. It also seems to me that also, unfortunately, New Orleans has the reputation of having like a very corrupt police department, although the whole police structure nationwide is being looked at. So the fact, to me, it just, the setting was sort of grounded in just sort of like in a way a comic book reality where I could see a pharmaceutical company choosing the city because they can, manipulate local law enforcement. They figure there's a lot of crime happening here. So this could be a way that they sort of do, sort of like they're using people as a laboratory.
Sure.
And this stuff, not to say that we've had like certain, there have been certain examples where stuff like that was happening. I mean, this is seriously like a story that could have taken place in, like Flint, Michigan or anything like that. I'm glad they didn't because it's way too soon. And just in my opinion,
right.
They haven't, I think they're just now beginning to deal with that issue. And,
right.
And New Orleans, just definitely has that, it has the extra flavor. It also has such a character of the city is that even though you could be dealing with some serious issues, there's also definitely a follow the fun aspect of the city because if you ever visited New Orleans, you know that's there's a magic to it. So yeah, no, and I pretty much agree. I mean, I sort of had a feeling that the main characters, none of them were evil. But I was just more like anticipating and hoping that they weren't. And I think for the most part, it was well, just incredible, just well plotted, setting up the rules of the drug. When she's first dealing, and then just someone asking, oh, I want to take this, I want to climb up walls. He's like, no, it doesn't work like that.
Right.
And then, the police officer sort of, again, expanding on those rules,
Right.
So
explaining the rules of the fictional world that we're operating in, right? Because even as, you and I are struggling with our language choice here, right? There's science fiction, classically, and then there's fantasy. And then you have to ask yourself, is there a comic book? Is it its own genre? Because, of course, oftentimes comic books just basically steal from the different genres. Science fiction, fantasy, even horror. Well, comic books was like, and let's add one more, Westerns and detective stories. Well, comic books, originally were Westerns, cowboy stories. Then they became detective stories. Some of them also had, pirate stories, which is pirate stories its own genre? Well, it's not that popular enough for us to categorize it as its own genre at the moment, but kind of, it certainly was a time when stories of pirates on swashbuckling and on the seven seas, there were enough of those fictionalized stories that they could have been their own genre, and comic books used all of those. So it's kind of hard to pick and say what genre comic books are. But what's a clear thing to your point is they have to frame what are the rules. What are the rules of this fictional universe that we're executing in? And they did a nice job of setting that up. Of saying, this is how it works. So therefore, when you see people acting in a certain way, now you can put pace and timing and expectation and, surprise. So if the bad guy's about to do something, we, the audience, know, wait a minute, the rule is if they do this, this, and this, they'll be fine. But if they do that, we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, yeah, and then and the interesting thing you just said right now is the pace. The whole idea that you basically have 5 minutes to have these powers is also interesting, because then it adds an extra tension. And whatever it is that you were going to do, it needs to be done within 5 minutes. So that each time someone puts in a pill, there is an internal clock which adds to the suspense of what's being
That's
done,
just,
which is what I think is really cool. And the whole idea that the pharmaceutical company is looking for a permanent pill, just again, just opens up the door for, they're going to continue the story.
correct. Also, I would throw in on top of that, yes, you've got some of the same superhero stuff, but they've stitched them together theatrically, dramatically in a unique way, right? So the pill only works 5 minutes. So now we have the theatrical or film trick of creating a timing element, right? Yes, I took the pill. Now I've got my superpower, but there's a timing element that's only good for a finite amount of time. In this case, in this storyline, 5 minutes. So our hero has to do whatever they're going to do, like you said, in 5 minutes, and then the pill will go, their power will go away, and now their circumstances will change. And the flip side for the bad guys, how you're gonna, so it gives a timing element. But what was another element I was gonna say about that? Oh, but then also, the first time you use it is an origin story and a discovery of my power story. Because again, this story, the universe's story is created in is that yes, we're giving you these pills, but no, we don't know what powers the pills have. As part of the elements of the backstories that we're experimenting on you guys, unethically, so that once you figure out what it is, well, then every time you take the pill, you will have that same power. But you don't know what it is the first time, so everybody's taking one, and everyone gets an origin story. Da 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 da, I can fly. Da 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 da, I can shoot spiderweb. Da 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 da, I got this. Da, 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 I got that. So again, it's just a story trick, but it's a fun story trick. So it's not one origin story movie for superheroes. Anybody on camera who pops one, we get to watch an origin story and a discovery of their powers and whatever. And then those who have done it a while, you see them have a mastery of their powers / abuse of their powers to good, for use of good or for use of evil. So it allows you to cram multiple elements of a superhero story into one, one little universe of how this film is done. And so I thought that was clever too, right? It's a clever way of cramming a bunch of different things that you liked from the different superhero stories, a bunch of different things that you like from action and suspenseful stories are now squished into this one story.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you took it there. That was actually a really fascinating point, about each first time is each person's origin story. So that is really cool. The other thing I was even thinking about is that, what are some of the annoying tropes that some of these movies have? The technobabble. This to me just sort of had enough. It had enough so that it wasn't annoying. I mean, just basically explaining sort of like the research that went into the pill. These are where the strengths came from, and that to a certain degree, they're animal or living thing based, survival skills or mutations.
Right.
And they were, and then cracking the code. I thought this. I said, you know what, this is what I needed. I bought it. It sort of reminded me of the recent Invisible Man movie, where you did not have to have too much explanation. They just showed you that the invisibility suit, and you're like, okay, I buy it. So, and
just nothing cut it off, right?
Just enough to cut it off.
Don't have too little. And again, at the risk of making some of our superhero fans get ticked off with us, we all know that the comic books over the decades, they take whatever happens to be what we think is, a science future or science fact, right? So if you go way back in time in the comic books, they're like electricity, lasers. How did you get your powers? I got zapped by electricity. And what else? Some chemicals. I mean, let's be clear.
Daredevil. I mean, it's like,
Chemicals splashed in his eyes.
If you fall into some like a vat of nuclear chemicals, your ass is gonna die.
You're gonna die.
But it's interesting, you know what? The other thing I was thinking about, the whole idea of having everything in a pill. They actually did have like a Daredevil story where there was this villain called Armadillo who was sort of using his body secretions to create pills. And there was this part of the story where people took these pills and they had temporary, like superpowers. So
sure.
So it was just.
Well, I was just going to say that
I think they carried the idea off, impressively. But this also leads to, I guess, sort of a little bit of my sore spot of the movie.
All right, go ahead.
My sore spot of the movie, unfortunately, and you have like a dynamic cast of protagonists and allies. I just honestly wish that the people at Netflix would follow the lessons for Extraction and make the villains as fascinating. Because honestly, it was just the villains to me. They did their job, but it was it's just a little slightly generic villain syndrome. It was they had the person who was the dealer, and actually the scene where they're dealing with him is actually a little more impressive than when they're dealing with the heavy. So that's a little anticlimactic.
Yes.
The villains to me, it was like use some of that money and get some interesting, just get some character actors with a fascinating looking face. You have people, not to say, if you could just put anybody into there and they could do something with it. Put, Giancarlo Esposito, who's in The Boys. He was probably doing The Boys while he wasn't doing this, but you get somebody like that into the movie. Or,
pretty people get plenty of work. Let's get some peculiar looking and ugly people and let them be villains. What's wrong with that? They need to get paid too.
Ugly people need love. Interesting character actor who's like a good, good backup person in one of our celebrated series, and
sure
make them the villain. The villain here. I think I recognize. I think actually the lady. I saw her in another show. Just okay, and then the heavies to me just you need the villains that snap, crackle, and pop.
Correct.
Just.
This villain didn't make you like, wow.
We had other actors. Courtney Vance is in the story. They didn't give him anything to do.
Correct. Correct.
The guy with Tracy Morgan, they didn't give him much to do. So, but anyway, if they're gonna build up to the other thing, I'm definitely hooked. But they really, really, spend some of that money and get somebody from, seriously, get somebody, some Steve Buscemi types or somebody, who can,
You can say it. I already said it. Get someone someone looks unique, or just somebody that don't look good. Get someone ugly.
Or are they interesting looking?
Or scary.
Whatever. Whatever it is. It doesn't have to necessarily. Ellen Barkin would be great as the business lead. And then she got that rough look, but she's fine as hell.
Right. Or you got to write it. You got to write it, or get, like you said,
she's
or you got to get a strong actor who will give you deliver that performance that's rough like that. And you're right. These two villains, they just set them up to be, I'm villainous, or watch me do one really evil thing. Here, give me a cat. I'm making this up, people. But, that's what they do in some of these stories. Here's a cat. I killed it. Does that make me a good enough villain now? Do you hate me? Am I a villain? No. You're going to have an excellent performance, put it into the story. Put in the story, and they look kind of freaky, scary, whatever. Like the trick with Buscemi always was, right? Was that this dude was totally looked like a scrawny, wimpy, couldn't possibly do anything. But the story says he murdered 8 people, and his eyes are totally crazy. And he's like, yeah, I murdered 8 people.
I buy that.
And you're like, I don't know. If that dude murdered 8 people, I'm really scared. Because that is the skinniest, scrawniest, murdering dude I've ever seen, and I think I don't want to be the 9th. So I'm gonna take your word for it.
Yeah.
If you're a big dude, then I'd go get a gun. But you a scrawny looking dude, and they say you killed 8 people, Buscemi. Yeah, okay. I'm afraid. I'm afraid of that.
I'm not gonna mess with that.
I don't want to figure out how you did it. I know how the big guy did it. I have no idea how you did it. I don't want to know.
I'm gonna be like that newscaster that saw the bison and hid in his car. It's like looking at the bison making eye contact. It's like, oh no, I'm not fucking with you.
No. That's not just a handsome cow. No, I'm getting in the car. Yeah. Or like you said, you get a really strong actor, who could perform it. So no question about it. I agree with you on that. The villains in this, again, back to the earlier thing I said, was you give us 3, really compelling and strong actors as our protagonists. Well, they didn't even get enough time to set up an evil antagonist. Plus, it was the whole mystery of about, first off, were all 3 of our people going to be good? And then finally we come to see, they are good, but now the movie's over and you haven't established how bad the bad people really are. And let's just be clear, the best, superhero stories take their time to establish the story for why the villain is villainous, and then also to give you excellent performances, right? And so you're like, okay, I get it. I know why this person is bad, and now I'm scared of him. I'm going to get out of this person's way. Knowing what I know as the audience, I'm staying out of this person's way. Even if all the other people in the movie don't know, it makes it more compelling because now you're yelling at the screen, no, do not mess with him. Don't you know that his cat got run over and his mama treated him badly and he's got a bad foot? Don't mess with this dude. Oh, you messed with him. Oh, I can't believe you did that. Those are the best stories. Yeah. This one, to your point, by the time they gave us the bad guy, they weren't that bad. They weren't, it's not that they weren't that bad. It was not, they weren't a compelling, strong villain again, all these aspects, compelling, strong villain that we think that our hero might not be able to defeat. That's also important, right? That this person might be the match for our hero, or they might outmatch our hero. And then our hero overcomes anyway, because good triumphs over evil, because our hero has friends and friendship triumphs over evil. So now I'm gonna do our usual hard segues in these shows and just covering all the things that we like, right? Shazam. I've said it before, but I say it again. You all read our reviews. I love Shazam. I had no idea I was gonna love Shazam, and because then it gave you family triumphs over evil, and when it hit me nice and hard. I was just like, okay, well done. I thought this was just going to be a superhero movie that would just be okay and kind of corny. And when the boy went to visit his mama, I had to check, make sure no one was watching. I had the wife and I tear a little bit. No one saw that. It's just a movie. No, it's not like Kill a Note Yeller, but a little tear came in the eye. And then when he pulled family triumphs over evil, I'm like, oh, all right, now we got something here, because they gave us a bad guy who had 6 other bad guys on his side to go defeat our hero. And plus our hero is, a kid who hasn't fully realized all his powers. Again, you have a villain that was established. And also, by the way, for Shazam, following the same line I'm telling you, it started with the villain anyway in Shazam, quite violently. In fact, with the Shazam movie, they start with the introduction of the villain, and it's shocking. They do a big shocker piece of violence right off the top. And I was like, whoa, what am I bringing my kids here to? A little bit too much violence. And then it wasn't domestic violence, but it was domestic neglect. We immediately followed the domestic, kind of shocking violence at the beginning of Shazam. And you're like, oh, you have my full attention. I understand why this villain is not a nice guy. This is not a nice guy. I know why he's not a nice guy, and he ain't gonna go back. He's not gonna be good. And then you find out he's going to be sufficiently strong. We're not sure if our hero can make it. I'll give one more. I don't know why we're stuck in the house watching a lot of TV. So I watched Sherlock Holmes Part 2 with Robert Downey Jr., The Game of Shadows, and I hadn't seen it in a long time. So therefore, when I watched it again, it seemed like it was new to me. Okay. And so I'm watching it and like, all right, I certainly like this director. You know which one we're talking about, Madonna's ex. He directed it, fast talking. I like fast talking. I like Robert.
Guy Ritchie, yeah.
Yeah, Ritchie. I like his stuff. He basically does stuff that's totally unrealistic and totally not true to the historical perspectives of stories, but you like him anyway. That's am I done, Mr. Richie? You're welcome to come on our show, but I think I've just described you. Okay, it's Robin Hood with laser bow and arrows, playing, dancing to dubstep music from dancing to dubstep. Is it realistic? No, it's not. Is it appropriate for the time? It is completely not. Do you like it anyway? You might like it anyway. So he gave us Sherlock Holmes, martial artist, in both of his films. Mm-hmm. Sherlock Holmes, Jackie Chan's. Robert Downey Jr. plays Sherlock Holmes, who has excellent, superior kung fu martial arts skills. And Mr. Watson is a great soldier, and even though he has his limp, he can fight and kick butt. Yeah. Just go with it.
After the Matrix, everybody was a master in kung fu.
Everyone learns kung fu after the Matrix. That's right. Even going back in time to Sherlock Holmes. Skip the hat and the pipe. Just go straight to everyone can do karate. And so anyway, so why am I bringing this up? They gave us a villain for Sherlock Holmes, Moriarty, which my understanding in the Sherlock Holmes books, Moriarty is supposed to be that evil, the perfect, pairing for Sherlock Holmes because he's that sinister and plotting. But my point is, even that character, Moriarty, was a guy who was just always he was always one step ahead of Holmes, even though they kept making Holmes the smartest and cleverest, and he keeps coming up with clever stuff, and it's our beloved Robert Downey Jr., and he's clever, and he keeps doing extra stuff. It's still not enough. It's still not enough. Moriarty does one other thing that's smarter than him each time. That's compelling storytelling. So even in the movie, which we haven't reviewed yet, but I think I've already given you most of my review in the way I'm saying it now. Not that great. But what does make it great is when you give a villain that you've given us enough background, enough time for us to say, hey, I'm not sure our hero can beat this villain. And bring it back to Project Power, I agree with you on your criticism. The villains that they gave us, weren't developed over time because we spent all our time with our three protagonists, and we enjoyed our time with them. But they spent a long time trying to say who exactly is the bad guy and how bad are they. We don't really find that out only to the end, and then we just find out, well, they're just bad. That's an insufficient answer. Oh, I'm just evil. I shoot cats. Did I mention I was a Nazi? I mean, it's not good enough. And then also, we have no idea, are our superheroes' capabilities and powers well matched with them or not? We have no idea, even all the way to the very end. Which again, so I'm agreeing with you and saying, and that takes a little bit of the edge off the climax, because the climax of your hero coming to the rescue and saving the day, well, again, you don't know, in really good stories, you're usually thinking, I understand my hero's powers, and I think they're not well matched. You might say to yourself, I don't know if our hero is going to make it against this villain, and what will help our villain win, again, the best stories say, well, the thing that makes our hero win in the end is because our hero is good. It's because our hero believes in family. It's because good triumphs over evil. It's because our hero learns our hero's lesson, right? Our hero is flawed, but right at the end, our hero says, well, you know what? I should love my daddy and not have daddy issues. And therefore, that's why the gun is in my back pocket, because I realized that I'm making that up. That'll be the next movie. But after our hero completes their hero's journey by discovering the one extra capability that they need to overcome the powerful villain, Project Power does not have that.
Yeah, and the thing is they do, because when you come to find out sort of like what they did to one of the characters, it's basically like, it's something that's just somebody's worst fear in terms of something that could be done to them. So it's just just their shells. I mean, they just sort of need to work on it. They did fine with Extraction, because the scale of the big heavy hero was one thing, and then the person who had his own motivation to save his child was another worthy adversary that went toe to toe with the hero. So they need to just in my opinion, stick with those lines. But I can honestly say, just This is going to be the person who wrote the screenplay. His name is Mattson Tomlin. I mean, this is like a very, you know, big year for him because of what's interesting that this movie came out. He's also written the screenplay for the Batman, which is the Batman that's coming out. And it's sort of like the movie comic nerd in me. If anybody's paying attention this week, it was a big week because I think they had the Batman trailer, which actually looks good. They also had another trailer for Wonder Woman.
Yes.
And they also had another trailer for the second Suicide Squad movie. So this is like, you know, DC property information. They're like, okay, you know, we're gonna help you get through COVID. As soon as COVID's over, you know,
it's DC time.
It's gonna be DC magic DC time. And
good for them. It's time.
This guy, and they're piggybacking off of a Netflix property, but he wrote the Batman, so the synergy is there. You know, so it's
good for him. So, good for him. I hope that they can do it too. You're exactly right. DC also, they launched them all at the same time on a live streaming event. They call it DC Fandom, which again, I'm sure, you know, is completely available to go back and watch on YouTube and see all the releases. And so my household was completely all over. We watched it as they streamed live, and then we watched them, we rewatched them. So yeah, it's a big week for that. Big week for this writer, as you mentioned, as they talk about the Spider-Man. I'm sorry, the Batman movie that this writer wrote for, and then of course this movie, Project Power, is just not a spoiler. It ends in a way that makes it clear to you that they want to franchise this bad boy story. And as you can imagine, you know, a story about a pill that gives you 5 minutes of power certainly has plenty of opportunity for more stories, prequels, current quels, sequels. You can go forward in time, you can go backward in time around this story, and they left themselves plenty of room for that without being too heavy-handed about it, right? You know, the Old Guard, which we reviewed earlier, was clearly a setup to say, we do more of these bad boys. The Old Guard was establishing itself to be a franchise. And in a much more overt way, this one put itself in a good position that it could keep telling these stories with these characters.
And I definitely hope that they keep the girl in the series somehow, whatever it is they're planning. I mean, I know that the characters, you know, sort of go their separate ways, but I'm hoping that they're able to keep this young girl in the series because I thought that she grounded it, and also just in my opinion, I just absolutely love the fact that you know, that she dealt with each and every challenge, you know, just in a without using, you know, without having to use any superpowers at all. Her superpowers was her mind, you know, a couple of different things. I'm not trying to give too much away. I probably gave a little, but I really appreciated that fact that you know, she had it like that in terms of being, you know, just an incredibly smart young lady. And again, charming. I definitely, if you know, definitely if they have a series, please don't lose her. Don't keep her in there.
Absolutely. No, she was delightful in this film. So it's Project Power. You're obviously getting high praise ratings from Claude and I for this. It's on Netflix. It's a Netflix original, and so let us know what you think, and we'll see you next time. I'm Jeff Johnson.
I'm Claude Faitier.
We're your movie review men. See you soon.